Gardeners are told from the start that the only way to get bigger plants, more blooms and heavier harvests is through fertilizer. Shelves at every store are stacked with bright bags promising instant growth. But what many discover after years of use is that fertilizers can create a cycle of dependency. Plants perk up for a season, but the soil underneath becomes weaker. The moment you stop applying, growth slows and the ground feels lifeless. The turning point came when I stopped using fertilizer altogether and instead started feeding the soil itself. What happened next was healthier plants, richer soil, and yields that outpaced anything fertilizers had given me. Why chemical fertilizers weaken soil over time? Fertilizer delivers nutrients in their raw, soluble form. Plants absorb them quickly, which creates the appearance of strong growth. But because the nutrients bypass the soil food web, worms, microbes and fungi are left without a food source. Over time, soil structure collapses, organic matter burns out, and you end up with compacted dirt that can't hold water or cycle nutrients naturally. The result is a garden hooked on fertilizer, like a patient hooked on medicine, needing more each season for the same result. When you break that cycle and turn back to natural systems, soil begins to heal, and plants learn to thrive without constant external feeding. Feeding microbes, actually works better than feeding plants directly. The replacement for fertilizer is not simply nothing, it's about shifting our focus to feeding the soil life instead of just the plant roots. Microbes, fungi and worms, well, they're truly the engines of fertility. They break down organic matter, unlock minerals, and make them available to plants steadily over time. When you supply them with the right food, they create a nutrient buffer that really lasts through the entire growing season. The difference is quite noticeable. Plants grow steadily, resist stress, and, interestingly, the soil gets better each year rather than worse. A practical way to do this is by applying organic residues directly to the garden in layers. For example, mixing 2 buckets of shredded leaves with 1 bucket of food scraps creates, well, the perfect balance of carbon and nitrogen. You just spread this across the soil surface and cover with straw or grass clippings. Within weeks, the soil life pulls it down, feeding both itself and your plants naturally. Mulch acts as a slow-release fertilizer that never runs out. Instead of pouring on liquid fertilizer, a thick mulch layer provides constant nutrition as it decomposes. A mulch made of straw, shredded leaves or chopped garden waste acts like a forest floor, breaking down slowly and keeping soil covered at the same time. Moisture is trapped, weeds are suppressed and microbes thrive underneath. For example, a 3-inch layer of leaf mulch applied in spring will gradually disappear by the end of summer, having turned into dark humus. During that entire time, it is feeding soil organisms that in turn release balanced nutrients to your plants. Compare that to fertilizer, which delivers a short-lived spike followed by a crash, and it's clear why mulch-based soil building grows stronger gardens. One of the easiest fertilizer replacements is trench composting. Instead of adding store-bought nutrients, dig a trench about 1 foot deep and fill it with alternating layers of kitchen waste and dry material like shredded paper or leaves. Cover it with soil, water it and leave it for a month or 2. By the time roots reach that zone, the material has softened and teems with worms. This works best when done in rotation. For example, in a tomato bed, dig trenches between rows one season. The next year, plant directly over those trenches and dig new ones in the path. Over a few seasons, the entire garden becomes a patchwork of buried organic matter, keeping fertility continuous without ever needing synthetic fertilizer. Another method that honestly works better than fertilizers is brewing a simple microbial tea. By mixing a handful of compost, a spoonful of molasses and a bucket of water, you create an environment where beneficial microbes multiply rapidly. When poured onto the soil or sprayed on leaves, this tea inoculates plants with living helpers that protect against disease and boost nutrient absorption. Unlike fertilizer, which only feeds plants once, microbial teas establish systems that keep working week after week. Applying such a tea every 2 weeks throughout the season ensures steady growth without burning or stressing plants. To apply these shortcuts effectively, follow ratios that balance carbon and nitrogen. When layering mulch, aim for 2 parts carbon-rich material like straw or shredded leaves to 1 part nitrogen-rich material like fresh grass clippings. For trench composting, fill about half the trench with greens like kitchen scraps, 1/4 with browns like shredded paper, and top the rest with soil. Water well so decomposition doesn't stall. For microbial teas, you'll want to use 1 cup of compost and 1 tablespoon of molasses for every gallon of water. Let that brew for about 24 to 36 hours before you apply it. By sticking to these simple proportions, you make sure the breakdown happens smoothly, odours are kept at bay and soil life stays nicely balanced. These natural feeds, you see, work continuously, whereas fertilizers often give too much too quickly, which can leave the soil depleted after that initial flush of growth. Why stopping fertilizer changed everything in my garden. You know, the most surprising change came not just in plant health, but in the soil itself. The ground became softer, held more water, and, well, it even smelled alive. Worms multiplied, fungi spread through the mulch layers, and every single year the fertility improved without any extra effort. Crops like beans, corn and tomatoes grew steadily without yellowing or stalling, even though no fertilizer was applied. The shortcut of feeding soil life instead of pouring on fertilizer honestly built a garden that essentially sustains itself. If fertilizers have kept you stuck in a cycle of dependency, there is a better way. Shift the focus to soil life, and your plants will reward you with growth that lasts. And if this guide has shown you a new path to stronger soil and better harvests, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor for more proven methods. Share this with fellow gardeners who still rely on fertilizer and, well, let's help them discover a natural way to build gardens that thrive year after year.